And for those just coming in now, if you do need to exit during the interview, there's a back door over there, just easier, I think, so you don't have to like walk in front of everyone awkwardly. At the end or middle, you can use the restroom. Okay, so Alyson. Alyson, what's your maiden name?
Heller.
Alyson Heller. Okay. So when I was talking to you before, I think I naturally said like, wait a second, your name's Alyson. I'm not really used to any Alysons. Maybe I know of like an actress named Alyson. Could you tell us about where you grew up and what your childhood was like?
Yeah, so I'm from California, and I grew up secular, like we were just from a very traditional home. We celebrated all the holidays. We always went to the local Chabad house or temple, or we were involved in everything. I absolutely knew I was Jewish, and but something that was important to my mother is she right away enrolled me into like a Gan Yisrael day camp. So I was right away getting a lot of Yiddishkeit, but in the summer. I also went to after-school programs, so I was getting. My grandparents were more traditional than us even, so I was completely surrounded with Judaism, but only when I was completely surrounded with Judaism. The rest of my life was in public school, where it was maybe two other kids were Jewish. So it was, my cousins also very traditional, so like I was surrounded by it on one part of my life, but not on the other part, so it was a little bit confusing. When I started camp, they asked me right away, what's your Hebrew name? So I just never identified with my Hebrew name, which is Nechama. I didn't identify with it, so I used it when they wanted me to use it, but I was Alyson, and I knew some people who like became from overnight, and they took on their Hebrew name, and then they dropped being from a year later, and I just didn't want to make any rash, and then it actually is an interesting story. When I went to get my permit, you need your birth certificate. So I dug through some papers and I found my permit, found my birth certificate, and attached to it was my Hebrew naming. And my Hebrew naming was Sarah Sharon. So why did I end up with Nechama? Is because the director said, what's your Hebrew name? I asked my mother. She said, no, go ask your grandmother. My grandmother said, you were named after my sister Anne, and her Hebrew name was Nechama, so your Hebrew name's Nechama. So I had been going by Nechama for so long that the rabbi that I asked was like, okay, so go by all of them, so my poor kids, everyone lugs around Nechama Sarah Sharon, but maybe that's why I didn't identify with Nechama, I don't know. But I stuck with Alyson, and I just felt like I'm always going to be a drop different than everybody, so let it be known right from the get-go.
I think in the Jewish world, like you have the name, like like in the non-Jewish, like Cher or like Beyonce, like you're Alyson. Like you don't even know you didn't know your last name.
It is a little bit like that, so I just embrace it.
One of your names, your first name is Sharon.
Nechama Sarah Sharon.
Is that a Hebrew name?
That's on my Hebrew. I don't know. You have to ask a rabbi.
Okay, I never heard that.
Whoever stamped approval, that I don't know. I wasn't paying attention way back.
So when you're saying you're growing up in a traditional home, is it safe to say that you growing up had no clue what a Pesach program was?
Oh, for sure not. I mean, we had Passover, definitely. We had the little Haggadahs from the grocery store. I remember one Seder, though. This is after I had already been, I don't think I was going to a Hebrew day school yet, but I was very much involved in my after-school program, and I could read Hebrew, and I was showing my grandfather that I could read Hebrew, and he didn't believe me. And I was showing him that I could read it, and I don't even know if he was impressed. He was so busy not believing me because it's so far removed. I mean, you have to understand there's so many layers here. My great-grandparents were religious. My grandparents were traditional. They all picked up. My parents were less traditional because that's what happens, right? They all moved to California. Not my great-great-grandparents because they were already, probably nifter, but like everybody moved to California. They were removing themselves layer by layer. And here I was coming back, and I think it threw them for a loop. For sure, my father just thought it was bonkers, but my grandparents were proud, but I don't know if they could really let themselves absorb it. I mean, later on they did, of course. When I married Lchaim, he had a very big impact on them. They were very, always very, even as my grandparents aged, it was like, even my mother right now, she has dementia, but she remembers Shlomi more than me. Like, Shlomi has the impact, but I think that represents, like, if you see Shlomi, you're like, oh, okay, wow, she's religious. There's no, getting around that. So it was a beautiful thing for them to see, but it took some getting used to.
I can imagine it's like sort of awkward because by you embracing Yiddishkeit as we know it, it's kind of making them probably feel bad that they abandoned it somehow.
So I don't really think any one of them felt like they abandoned it. They got confused by it. My grandmother had different dishes for Passover, but she didn't keep the other. They were just
She's eating like challah on that, but
exactly.
But she has them.
I think it just got filtered down and down and down and down, and it was like a slow process. And I know in my childhood we were so confused also because we would be annoyed like not to have pepperoni, but we were eating in other cases milk and meat. Like we just didn't. You were just grasping at straws of what you knew and also. Why should you care about bits and pieces of Yiddishkeit? It's actually more confusing to be at the cusp of deciding you're religious than it is to just be religious. It's harder when you're not sure. Like, basically, to back up a little bit, I continued going to the day camp, and I would go back to my yearly life in the public schools. And then at one point, I realized when I was in camp, I was proud to be Jewish. When I wasn't in camp, I wasn't proud to be Jewish. I was embarrassed by it. It was holding me back. It was something that I didn't want anyone to linger on. Why should I be different? In any way, why should I be different? I don't want to be different. It wasn't something that I valued. And then when I was with Jewish people, and especially in the day camp environment, you're like literally singing, I'm a Jew and I'm proud. And I was very young when this hit me. And then my mother's a whole different story, but my mother had started one day when she went to enroll me in camp, one of the years, they said, do you type? Could you just sit down? We need help. And she ended up working at not only the camp, but the school. So she was very close. She had like this whole bond that she was building with that community as well. And then one day I asked her, basically one boy said something mean to me. He called me Pippi Longnose, like, Pippi Longstocking. And I was so embarrassed because I was popular and I had friends, but I probably didn't have the full confidence you have when you're older. And I just said, why am I in an environment where I don't know. I just asked my mother that night if she would support me if I went to school. And she was like, sure, go to Hebrew Academy, come, we'll do it. So I switched to school, and then it didn't happen overnight, but over time I did become fully religious. So I was very young, and my mother did not. So my mother went out of her way. She shopped for me. She added to my own toaster oven. My whole family never became always affiliated, very affiliated. They know everybody, but not from. So it was just me.
For the record, you do not have a long nose. That was just a mean comment.
Well, you go tell Derek that, okay? Because I remember, never tell me anything negative because I will carry it forever. Yeah.
Kids could be mean. But to make, I guess, your life a little more complicated, at what age were your parents divorced?
When I was 3. So I don't remember that. I don't remember my father living with us. I do have a relationship with my father, but not a relationship that makes you a complete person. He's someone, he's more like an uncle. He's a person I know, and he's not demonstrative. He's not a loving, outwardly loving person. So it's not maybe for his lack of trying. It's just he's not that type of person. So I definitely am missing the father figure. There's like a few grandfathers here that I've adopted because they're like my father figures that I see once a year. But I definitely, I have felt that through the years that I'm lacking that part. My mother made sure I wasn't lacking for anything. She went out of her way financially, lovingly. She's not my speed. We're very different people. So there's a lot of things I couldn't get from her. But confidence is all from her, and on just the amount of love and telling me I was wonderful, from forever, all that kind of things, I think built a lot of my character.
And how did it affect you, the fact that you didn't have, I guess, both your parents living in your house? Did you have to go to other people's houses growing up?
So I think you don't realize it when it's happening, but I guess the effects that it had was my mother was a single mother, so she had to work really hard. There were times where I would have to pretend or fill in the void for myself about it was very important for me always to not look like I was lacking at a very, very young age. So I would see things in other families, and this has nothing to do with Judaism. I would see things that I wanted, and I would just play the part of the person that was whole. From such a young age that I feel sorry for that child. But these are things that we do, and maybe it taught me life skills also, and I try not to do it now, to play the part of someone who is whole, because none of us are whole, but I did it for a long time. And then I think one of the things with Judaism is that Shabbos, I would go to other people's house for Shabbos, and Shabbos is such a special time where everybody's together, dialed in, looking at each other in the eye, a whole family, whether there's dysfunction or not, because almost in every household there's some sort of dysfunction, and that's okay. You're still getting so much, and you should just be aware of what you're giving your children when maybe making Shabbos is an inconvenience sometimes, but when it's actually Shabbos, what you're giving your family is something that you there's no value. It's beyond what you're giving your child, even if you don't see it, and even if you're exhausted, and even if you didn't, you don't want to wash the dishes, and all the things that come with Shabbos, you're giving your kids something, essential base. You're checking in with them every week. Friday night, no one's running to their phones, locking their doors, whatever the things that my kids do that bother me. You are together, and you're reconnecting. So I saw at a young age the beauty of Shabbos. I think that was one of the things that really spoke to me right away.
I always find it interesting about people who don't grow up Orthodox and then become Orthodox, then their kids are growing up Orthodox, and it's like a shift, and it's a different role that you have to play. Did any of your kids, who might be in the room, I don't know, did any of them themselves struggle with being Orthodox or following the system?
So I think every child and every person should question their Yiddishkeit. They should choose it for themselves. I think it's super, super unhealthy to assume that your kids are going to be exactly how you want them to be, meaning to say what you picked for yourself. If you have a Judaism where someone picked it for you, that's not authentic. So whenever my kids do have questions, and one of them actually had more questions than the others, and also all my kids, I'm sure everyone has this, the kids are so different. Every kid, you think you got it under control, but no, the next kid has very different questions than the child before. But you have to be super supportive in their own search, because they have to choose Hashem or this way of life or what they see for themselves. Because if they don't, then it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen then, if it doesn't happen at 16, it's going to happen at 18. If it doesn't happen at 18, it happens later. And, God forbid, when they're married and already chose a wife and chose a lifestyle, and then they decide to have a moment of, questioning, that's not really healthy either. So whenever someone's questioning, they have to have the freedom to, I was very lucky. He didn't test us so far.
He didn't get a face tattoo.
Yeah, I know that there's people that test their parents much further, but first of all, every child should be able to give a parent nachas in their own way from where they're coming from. You have to see the nachas from that child. You have to. And I think, first of all, I want to just say something about the program in general. You're going to hear things. You're going to be inspired. Everything is easier said than done. Just know that. Like, you could be inspired, but it doesn't mean that in 1 second you can incorporate that into your life. So when I say, let your kids challenge you because the nachas will come, that's easier said than done. And obviously there's a whole spectrum of what parents will have to go through with their children, but it will be worth it. It will be worth it.
Very beautiful. Before this, we had a pre-conversation, and the word that you used, I want to get this right, you classified yourself, at least growing up, as an overcompensator. Could you describe why you thought of yourself that way and what you've done to outgrow that?
So I haven't outgrown it. I'm an overcompensator. The one thing I did outgrow is that I used to be like the icing on the cake person, I used to say. So like I had to make dessert. I had to make 5 desserts. I had to make the dessert fancy. And I just dialed that back and I said, I'd rather be gracious and I'd rather do things like in the right way with the right amount of energy and be present on Shabbos than kill myself with the silly things and then be upset, like be in a bad mood when you're hosting or whatever because you used all your energy in advance and no one cares about the cake. So I think that I do care about putting on a nice Shabbos table, but I use plastic and I just don't want to wash dishes. I got a lot more comfortable in the things that I just decided that I draw the line. So, but yes, I overcompensated for sure because again, I was building the vision of what I wanted to be seen as, and again, a very, very young age. And then there was plenty of years where I was just downright lazy, and I didn't do any of that. Like, I was naturally, I guess I'm friendly, so I always had friends. I didn't have to really go out of my way to like fit in and things like that. But there's times in your life where you're challenged, and maybe someone doesn't see the good things in you, and you go, oh. And that just brought it out more. Oh, I have to be even better because people are not seeing that I'm good, and it's so important for me to be. It was so important for me to be accepted and appreciated, and all these things, and valued. And like, not everybody's gonna get you, and not everyone's gonna value you, and not everyone, You just have to. Sometimes you have to let it go and say, okay, so this person doesn't get me. Maybe one day they will. Or sometimes you have to. Say, do I get me? Do I appreciate me? I know I'm trying. I don't know. Like, I don't have all the answers, for sure not. But I definitely started off that way, and I was just naturally. Also, my mother says a lot of times that it skips a generation, that my grandmother was similar. My grandmother, I saw her, she passed away, but I saw her in action at like 90, standing on a bathroom counter, cleaning the top of the mirror. We're like, what are you doing? So it could skip a generation where, you don't even know where you're getting things. Or, nurture versus nature, I don't know where I got everything, all the pieces that make me me.
My question is, like, what advice would you give to someone in the crowd who and I think everyone struggles with overcompensation to some degree, but what advice would you give to them if they feel like they're trapped in that having to overcompensate all the time? What advice would you give to them?
I would say give yourself a break. Also, I would say that a lot of times our authentic self is a very big gift, and a lot of times we're searching for things from other people, and we don't realize by being calmer and being in our natural state, we're giving a bigger gift than if we were running and chasing goals. If we were our calmer self, by just being there and being present and being there for the person who's right in front of you, not the whole world, but being there right for the person in front of you, you could actually be doing more than when you feel like you have to be everywhere. You don't. Just be where you are and be very present where you are, and try to build a connection with the people in your circles. It's fantastic to be able to help everybody, but sometimes it's just the one-on-one. So just be you, and don't worry. Like, we don't have to be. If you want to be everybody on your Instagram feed, you're gonna lose your mind. I met a girl. she married into our friend circle, and she was trying to take the best attribute of every one of the wives, and I was like, and then eventually she became her own, and she's the best on her own. Don't be the best of everybody, because you're just gonna fail. Like, you're gonna be exhausted. You're gonna be exhausted, and it's not fair to anybody, especially yourself.
That's a very nice answer. So, is there a moment that you had in your life where you first really grew into who you are, that feeling like you actually belong?
So there's a few different stages, but when I first moved to New York, I got engaged and I got married, and I definitely, leaned on my in-laws. I had a family unit, but I was very lonely. And my husband was, obviously, I was very close to my husband, but I was extremely lonely because I left behind all my support system, and not just my family, like anybody who I've known from my whole childhood I left behind. So like the person who works there, and the person just think about all the people that you know from your shul. I left everybody, and it was, and I didn't realize, I couldn't put it into words. I wasn't smart enough to know why I was so lonely, but I was so lonely. Like, I feel really bad also for that person, because it was a very, very hard time for years. And then I built a community in my son's school. They were going through a lot at the school, and they called for an emergency meeting, and they said every parent must come to this emergency meeting. We're struggling. And I told my husband, you have to take off work, we have to go to this emergency meeting. And he's like, no, I think you could represent us. I don't have to take off work. And then I went to the meeting, and there was 5 people there. And I thought, coming from a community, like emergency meeting, you go. And then I took over, like, helping the school, and that just grew and grew and grew and grew. And then through helping, it helped build my identity. It helped me build a community. So it's really funny how we're searching and searching, and then you find yourself in the helping. So I would say that helped me build my community. So I had, family, and then also as my kids got older, I didn't ever question, do I belong here? Am I an imposter? Because now all these people sitting around the table are mine. Like, I'm theirs. So, and then, my daughter-in-laws, my grandchildren, like, other family that joins, they're mine. Like, how powerful is that? Like, so I'm very blessed, and I never have to go back to that feeling.
That's really beautiful. Do you still go to those emergency meetings? Because the yeshivas, they do this every week. They're like, we really need money. Alice, can you come again?
So like we said, life's so layered. I gave 15 years to that yeshiva, and I loved it so much. And then I moved on. Like, it changed, and it wasn't the place that I, first dedicated myself. But I think the lesson there is, in the beginning, it was hard for me to go back there because I had given so much, and it didn't end as well as I would wanted to have.
Oh, we're gonna unpack that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole different podcast. But one thing I would say is, when I go there, I'm like, oh, I redid those bathrooms. I put up that awning. My name, like, and I think that is a lesson for life. Is, like, let's say you don't have a family. Let's say you're here, you're single, you're whatever. You have to, everybody's job in this world is to leave the world a little bit different. Like, you need to leave, something has to be different. What have you done? Even if you're just there for your lonely neighbor, but you need to leave your stamp on something. And I think that's the lesson that I learned. Like, when my life changes, like, did you leave your stamp on something? Like, is life different because you were here? And I think I made an impact in my community, and so I'm proud of that.
Not to get too spiritual, but I think that's really, how, we're created in the image of Hashem, and everything is Hashem's creation and doing, and the way that we emulate Him and be like Him is by putting a part of our neshama or work or soul into the place. So for you, is putting yourself into that yeshiva, and anyone could go back there and see the difference. I mean, they may not know that you did the actual bathrooms, but having, those...
I did a lot of things, and the things that made me the most proud is, like, the little things. It's not the big things, it was the little things. Like, when you could, like, help a child who, I used to walk through the hallways. I wasn't in education. I was in more of, like, the whole yeshiva atmosphere and product, development and stuff like that. But you'd walk the hallways and you would see kids playing, and I would be like, is everyone having fun here? Because it sort of looks like one of you is not having fun. And then I would take that kid, I'd be like, could you come help me in the office? Because we need, those are the things that resonate with me the most, because, and then actually from there I went to work in a corporation, and I loved it, but I was always saying, I miss the kids, like, because you could help somebody, you could change someone's day. Like, and there's little things, but they're so important. And maybe the teacher wouldn't be able to see what's going on recess, or so. I don't even remember the original question, but.
No, that's great. And, in terms of like helping like kids have fun, it's so thoughtful of you to think about that. I think in my issue growing up, they would have like pulled a kid aside and said, "Are you having fun?" And said, "No," like and shake them, "Have fun, have fun." So you did it in a very good way.
Because you always can use your mommy skills,
Right.
like, and I use my mommy skills all the time. I work in a school now. I'm the administrator of a girls' high school, and I tell the girls that I have an open door policy, even though I'm not really like the educator there in the sense that I have what to do with the girls every day, but I let them know, like, if you're just not finding your person in the school, like, I'm also a person and you can come to me, and sometimes they need that. It's like someone separate, and I use a lot of my mommy skills there, and that's what they need. They just need a new person. They need someone to like look them in the eye and hear them. So I'm happy to do that, like young or old or anybody, because there's times when I've needed it, and I appreciate the people that did it for me.
How would you describe the school that you're in now?
The school I'm in now is a place for anyone who doesn't feel like they are flourishing. Like, it's a high school from 9th through 12th grade, and basically during that time people struggle, and you could let your kids struggle, and then they're 18 and they're graduating and they're missing a lot of pieces of themselves, and they didn't use those 4 years to fill in what they're missing. They use those 4 years sort of going the wrong way, and it's a shame. It's a shame. I'm not saying it's easy always to pull your kid out of a school that they're in and maybe they're friends, but you could use those years to build someone up, not take them down. So if somebody is floundering, then it's a time to address that, and that's what our school does. It's basically for whatever reason. It could be educational, it could be emotional, it could be friends, it could be a bad peer group, it could be that the principal just doesn't get them, the teacher doesn't get them. So it's a school that tries to give the girl what she's missing and also celebrate what she has. It's what gives me the most nachas in our school is celebrating the girls for what they are good at, because being productive, finding the good in yourself is so contagious. If you're successful, it's so contagious. You're like, oh my God, I was good at that. I thought I wasn't good at anything. I'm good at that. So now they're celebrating that. Now I'm the artist of the school, and every time they need something drawn, they call me. Like, how powerful is it? It's so powerful. So I think we should all do it with our own kids. We should do it with our friends. We should do it with everyone that we know. Like, celebrate what they are good at and make sure that they know that they bring value.
It's such a good point that those 4 years could be very critical for someone's development, and not taken the right way, not going about it the right way could really be.
It's really formative, and the problem is you then send them out into the world. They're 18, they leave to seminary or college or whatever pieces are missing. Now they're gonna just, like what Rabbi Taub said, they're filling it with something maybe that is all not right for them. So it's a very important time to build them up and make them whole, and make them not need to seek someone else out to make them whole. Like, that's something also, like, people do. Adults, any age does this. We seek someone else to make us feel whole because there's a void. So when someone can fill their voids, and of course that's another thing that's easier said than done, but if you could figure out the void in you and find something good to fill it with, you're going to be much better off than if you fill those voids with unhealthy things.
I kind of miss the schooling structure because, as soon as you're old enough to really remember, you're in a school structure, and you have the advantage of, although you're not in it, but you're surrounded by it. And after someone graduates, whether for a guy it's like, after base medrash, you're kind of like out there, and it's good. That's the way the world's supposed to be. But there's something very nice about having a structure and being
told what to do every year.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You're just okay. Yes, you have to search for a yeshiva. You hope you get accepted somewhere, but you're told every year what you're supposed to do. And definitely, I've seen boys or girls. You're done with the system, and it's like, now what? And there has to be a lot of decisions making, and some rise to the occasion quickly, and some don't. But you hopefully have a support system and you find your way. But
Yeah, no, it's funny to me that I could recall, like, oh, in fourth grade this happened. Because you have structure, also my memory was so, maybe because I was younger, but I'm 32 now. The past 10 years is a blur. Like, I don't remember, is like, oh, is that, no, that wasn't the year I got married. That was 8 years after that. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm just venting now.
No, I think there's certain memories, and I say I carry a lot of the negative memories, but I think there's certain things that just stick with us. So it just goes to show how educators have such an important role, because a teacher tells you something good and it sticks with you. A teacher tells you something bad, it sticks with you. They have a lot of say in how you develop. So schools have to be very careful who they put in the classroom. I think we have to really celebrate good educators. And another project that's very near and dear to my heart is I work with this organization called the Lchaim Foundation. And whenever I feel overwhelmed, I say, that's really the icing on the cake, and I should stop working for them. But they're so valuable. In the summer, we run a retreat for teachers and educators that literally is training them and celebrating them, so that educators should be caught up to date with the training. They should get certificates for every class that they take. Their resume will be better, that they are completely caught up with education, and also celebrated, wine and dine. The same ambiance is here we do for the educators, because they get paid the least in our society, all the things that people say, but they're so integral to raising the next generation that it's you can't say enough about it. So it's very important that if you also, quick story, is my son had a teacher who was actually struggling with fertility. Unbeknownst to me, like, I didn't really look that far deep into his life. I just knew he was very special. So one day I was walking to work and I was thinking about how special this Rebbe was. So I sent him a quick voice note, and I just said, I just want you to know there's certain people that belong in education. Like, there's certain people, fine, you're in education, you're good at it, you're like here. This guy was here. And also that he didn't go off and run off on shluchas, like, some of our best leave. And I said, I just want you to know I appreciate you, and it's just, you're so special, and you go above and beyond, and it's not, the parents see it, and I just want to send my appreciation. Later on, he once sent the voice note back to my husband, and years later, and he said, I just want you to know I saved this and I replay it for myself whenever I'm feeling down, and your wife was able to do that. And Baruch Hashem, he had a baby, and we were talking to him when we were celebrating that with him, and he was just saying how important that message was. And for me, it was sort of an afterthought, and look how special it was to him. So, you think you don't have power, well, guess what? You don't know when someone needs that special word. You have so much more power than you give yourself credit for. We all do, so.
That's really special. I kind of wish I had a voice note to play it here now. I'm embarrassing in front of everyone. That's really, really nice. It's interesting because I think the overall yeshiva system, obviously it's so expensive now, but the amount of improvement, if you look in the past 30 years of the people in education, and I'm sure there's a lot of people 30 years ago that were, 30 years ago was like, oh, I want to be a Rebbe. Okay, great, you're a Rebbe.
Here's your classroom.
Yeah, here's your class. Oh, I'm abusive. No, you have a beard though, so you're fine. You totally get in. It didn't make a difference. But now I think they really go through finding the right Rebbe or Mora, whoever it is, and.
So I would agree with you, but I would also agree some schools take a little too long to decide that someone isn't a good fit, or they're not listening to the parents. And I get that, because sometimes I say to myself, if one guest is complaining about it, I'll listen, but when 3 guests are complaining about it, I'm like, hey, this is factual. So I can understand a school, you can't jump at every complaint, but you should work, A, to find a good fit for that child, and B, maybe if a few parents are having the same experience, or a kid is really, you don't want to wait until that kid now needs years of therapy because you wasted their whole year and it was such a negative experience, and now you made this problem and you could have listened. I know life is not that simple. You can't jump, but there's a lot of responsibility yeshivas take. There's just a lot of responsibility. You can't take for granted that you have a child that's forming under your watch.
So before we were talking about um, like parenting advice and tips that you've had. And you said something that was great, and I even wrote it down. You said something about enjoying your kids and don't sacrifice their childhood. It's not a race. Could you expound on that?
Yeah. So one thing I noticed with my daughter-in-law, sorry to keep calling you out, is I think they see that I am now who I am, but when I was raising my babies, I was not this. So I think it's the same, especially with TikTok or Instagram or seeing these people, you have no idea the sacrifice what they're doing to their family. So that feeling that you have to already have a company, you already have to have a brand, you already have to be, no, you have to be a mother, and you need to, things will happen, especially, not all, but some from people, you have your kids when you're young. There's so much time. So what you put into your kids, one day will come out. Maybe you don't see it right away, but they'll give back to you, the nachas that you know, and you have to be open to seeing the nachas. That's one of the mistakes that mothers make, my age and older, is you don't take the time to appreciate the nachas and like the little things, the big things, the everything, but you have to appreciate it. But I do think that it's the hardest thing to raise children. And I have a 5-year-old now, so which is also funny stories, but I have a 5-year-old now, and I'm right there with them. I'm right there with my young daughter-in-law's raising a small child, and it's super hard because I'm going 150 miles per hour, and they make you go, okay, wait, I can't do that. I need to be very present for this kid. I mean, he's really struggling during the program, during the year, no matter what's going on during the day, I do the morning with him, I do the bedtime with him, and we have this special time, and here it's been even harder. He's so verbal about it. He tells me, I said to him, but I brought my, his nanny during the year, and I said, Nani's here, she's like your second mommy, she could put you to bed, and he goes, Nani goes home, like in the city, Nani goes home, and he's like, this is supposed to be our time, and I put him to bed last night, and I snuggled with him for as long as he needed, and we have to know, some kids aren't verbal, so if you're not taking the time, you just have to take the time. It's easier to take the time and be at their level than it is to pick up the pieces later, and just remember that this is your best investment. This is everything, like your kids, no one's going to remember later that you had a fancy Instagram page. Your kids are with you for a lifetime. It's what we put into them. So it's hard for me. It's not easy. It's hard. Sometimes I'm good at it. Sometimes I'm terrible. But don't feel like it's a race. It's just not a race. It's a race for what's going on in your house. I've had challenges where I get too caught up in work. I worked in a corporation. It was very hard for my family because I was so successful there that it was contagious for me, and I just went on a runaway train. Like, I could be there from morning till night. It wasn't healthy for my family, which was pointed out to me, and it was hard to hear. But I had to stop what I was doing and reframe my thinking, and be more around for my family. So sometimes you need to be called out, and sometimes you need to call yourself out. If no one's there to call you out, call yourself out and say, why am I so outward facing? Let me be inward facing. Let me make sure that my home is where my values are, and not worry about the world. So it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to raise small children, and don't let anybody tell you it is, because it's not.
You said something also before that I found so interesting, that when young parents are dealing with their kids and they start to think about, like, oh, I want to live my life, right? Obviously, I'm a parent at first, but hey, I want to have fun. I want to travel. Could you talk about that and the opportunity that doesn't really go away?
Yeah, so I think young parents, I think you struggle, and I think you are 100% correct in your struggle. Don't tell yourself you're wrong. You're not wrong. You lose yourself in your children. You absolutely lose yourself. You become under them, and sometimes your spouse also gets pushed down the rung, which has been pointed out to me. Your kids become more and more, your focus of your life, and you have to remember, your values and where you fit in. So you deserve the shower, you deserve certain things, but a lot of things fall to the wayside. So hopefully you have a support network. Hopefully you lean on your support network, not when you're break down. Before that, not everybody has a support network, so you're on your own, unfortunately. So hopefully your spouse, you splurge for some extra babysitting. You splurge. We have to know, is it better to have a steak dinner or is it better to have some cleaning help? You have to choose what's important. But I do think that the most important thing is just for parents to realize, maybe you don't have time for a vacation right now. Maybe you don't. One day you're going to go on that vacation. Have a staycation. Take a day off of work while the kids are in playgroup. Do what you need to do. I always say, even after this program, what could I do next week that's going to help me recuperate? I have no idea. My friend Shayna tells me all the time, do self-care. What does self-care look like? I couldn't tell you. But you find something, whether it's eating a hamburger in your bed, not to talk about it on Pesach, but whatever, you're watching a dumb show, whatever it is, you find the self-care. And then you also, like I said, it's finding the value in your family, finding the value in your children and your spouse and what you're building. And if you can truly value it, then you'll feel less like you need that vacation. And also, this is the most important thing I'll say in this whole time, is it's self-talk. If you tell yourself, I can't, I hate them, they're sucking the life out of me, these kids are sucking the life out of me, my husband doesn't care, this one, if you tell yourself, wow, I'm doing a fantastic job, I'm doing the best I can, okay, so it's fair, I need a break. I'm healing myself by being a good mother. Maybe I didn't get these things as a kid, but I'm giving my kids every single thing I didn't get. Tell yourself that. Every single thing I didn't get, I'm giving my kids. Wow, I'm now a rock star instead of the person who just a few minutes ago wanted to jump out the window. You're doing something so powerful. You could use all of that exhaustion and formulate it into a way that you're being positive. You're telling yourself something positive. You're doing positive things with all that energy that you're dumping, but it's what you tell yourself. If you tell yourself you can't, you can't.
Very powerful. I always wake up whenever, I'm awake the whole time, but whenever someone speaks, like, if there's one thing from this speech, it's like, okay, I will remember that now. Right. And chances are, I think by next year, if you ask everyone here, like, what was that one thing? I think most people will remember. Okay, now to get to what I feel like is the juicy part, running a Pesach program. Let's start off like this, because I asked for it. I always find it interesting. What's the most annoying thing about running a Pesach program? And we only have 10 minutes, so you can't go on for
Right. Well, you're going to need 20. I think the most annoying thing is just being scared constantly what I forgot for me, it's what I do to myself, is that what did I forget? Just what did I forget? It's not what you think. It's not the people's questions. It's not the people's needs. It's not that. Because, like I said, my favorite thing is fixable problems. Come to me, I will fix it. If some things I can't fix, I find that very difficult. I find it difficult if I forgot something. I hate when something changes in the guidebook. So if you ask me to move your class, I hate that. There's a mistake in the pool hours. I hate that. Those are the things that irk me. Otherwise, it's my pleasure.
What was the impetus for starting this program?
Okay, so we went to a Pesach program. Well, first we went to Pesach program Alyson Feldman for many years. And then at one point we went to a Pesach program. We were guests, and we really, really loved it. It was just also like a middle-of-the-ground Pesach program, and we just had so much family time there. It was so beautiful. And then they closed, and we went to a different one, and guess what? It was not beautiful, and it was run quite poorly, and at that time, my best friend is married to a caterer, Levi, and he would tell me all the time, let's start a Pesach program, and I would just be like, with what time? Because I was doing so many things at that time, I didn't have a minute. But we had a third friend that we met, and he found a hotel. And to make a long story short, when we were at that program that was just terrible, I was like, well, this I could do with my eyes closed, because I was an event planner, so I was like, I could do this, okay. And then he had found a hotel, and then one year we just started. It was 7 weeks notice. That's when he found the hotel. We were like, let's just do it as for fun, haha. And, we had no idea, what it would turn out we didn't know if it was a hobby, we didn't know if it was just for that year, but Baruch Hashem, it was successful that year. And then the pressure was on because the whole time of the 7-week program, we could make a joke that, anything that wasn't wrong, we only did it in 7 weeks. But the next year we had a whole year to plan, so it had to be good. And Baruch Hashem, we grew a nice following, and we're so blessed with our guests. They're such great people. We met so many nice people.
What's been the biggest disaster in the past 10 years?
Okay, so I would guess there was just the one story with the guests. Not to, I don't think he would find his way to this podcast or anything. So one year we had a guy who really liked to massage people's shoulders, and it was
Red flag.
Red flag, and it was quite awful. So I went to the front desk, and this was not at this hotel, at a different hotel. And I went to the front desk and I said, please be on the lookout for this guy. Make sure he's not doing it in the lobby, because he was already approaching teenage girls. It was getting very uncomfortable. So I went to the front desk and I said, there's a guy massaging. And the guy goes, oh, I know, he gives a good massage. He massaged the guy at the front desk. So we had to go ask him to leave. Needless to say, we had to ask him to leave. So we did arrange for a hotel nearby, and we arranged for food, and his wife ended up staying on at the program and enjoying herself, and he just needed to not be. Yeah, she was very happy to be invited to stay. But you bring this many people together, people have their situations, so you don't always know who you're bringing, but we do act on any red flag. We always act on it. It's not the only red flag we've come across, unfortunately, but it was the most outwardly facing and something we had to deal with right away. So, that was a little bit of a disaster, because you invite people. It's like if you invite people to your home and then there's some awkward, situation, you got to deal with it. So it wasn't great, but it was, we fixed it the best we could.
You even accommodated him.
We accommodated him, yes.
Wow.
What's your goal? When you're setting out a program, obviously you want everything to run smooth, but when someone finishes the program, what do you want them to have experienced?
I definitely want for people to feel like they had a vacation. I think a Pesach program isn't just your Pesach money, it's definitely your vacation money also. So they should feel rested, relaxed, vacationed, inspired. They should feel less alone. If maybe they were feeling alone at any time in their life, maybe they made friends here, maybe they made some connections. So that's very important to me. And my main goal when I start off is that we just shouldn't be a story. You know how there's Pesach program stories? I just don't want to be a story. Only in a good way we should be a story, No one's throwing plates or whatever. So that's my main goal, but my secondary goal is that everyone should just leave feeling a little bit more whole, a little bit inspired, a little bit rested, and just feel like they can go back to their real worlds a little bit.
And kudos to you and your team, because I think you have the perfect balance, because sometimes there's programs that are very nevach, and then there are programs that are it's crazy, and it's like Hashem is gonna send us back to Mitzrayim. You guys do the middle ground, which is a perfect balance of it's nice and it's also grounded. So
yeah, so that was one of our goals when we started out, was what was a program that we could afford, right? Because we were we were working people, and we were we weren't uncomfortable, but some of these programs, even now where we've come to, it's probably out of our comfort zone. So we appreciate people save up all year. We're trying to keep it to the reasonable point. So while we add lots of luxury moments, we try not to tip the scale, because you could always add. You could just add and add. You ever go to a wedding and you're so they just told the party planner yes? They just said yes? There's not even beauty in that, because there's just everything. So you don't need a fancy dump. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to know. I personally think you need to have the beauty in the speeches, and you should be well fed, you should be wined and dined, but we're trying not to take it over the top where it hits your pocketbook and you just can't afford it. So that's our goal. Our goal is that a family who needs, and sometimes people come to us because that year specifically, they normally wouldn't take on the expense, but that year specifically, I can't say the word, specifically, that they need it. So someone needs to be affordable and still feel luxurious. Someone has to do it.
I want to open the floor to questions. So we're going to take a few questions. And, okay, we have a hand right over there.
Yeah, I want to just say thank you so much for all your help in making the week very nice. It's my birthday today, so.
Oh, happy birthday.
We're waiting for the bracha from
That's
you,
right, I was gonna give her a
the
bracha
birthday
for
boy.
to have a very, very
Wow.
healthy life, continue to much success. I do have an interesting question for you that I don't know if you do it specifically, but how do you plan all that food? That's, I've never seen in my whole life, I was here last year, and how do you do it? I mean, every time you turn around, it's always interesting, and just beyond all that, what you have to supervise, do you actually go over all the menus?
So we discussed the menus, but our partner is Levi Fagenson, and Levi has a team that is outrageous. And some years they're so busy, planning weddings and all these things that maybe they're not as focused on Pesach all year as we are. But we poke and poke and poke to make sure. But I don't think we have that problem anymore because he's he understands how big this program's gotten and how much attention it needs. And this whole program, I work on it a lot and I give my heart and soul to it, but there's so many layers of managers and teams and people that I lean on. I mean, Daniela, like we didn't have in the past, the Swybeckers, Yitzi and Daniela, and like what a gift from Hashem. Like just to have somebody that you could you look them you see them passing by and you're like, great, whatever problem they're dealing with, I'm not dealing with this. And they jump to deal with problems, and you can't, I don't know, there's not enough words for what the management do. Like, I'm not the only one losing sleep, put it that way. There's others losing sleep and making sure, and let me just tell you, if everyone brings their own talent and you put all these talented people together, that's how this happens.
Good answer. Okay, do you have a question over there? Yeah.
How many years were you running the program before you came to Villaroma, and how did you find Villaroma and what brought you here, and how do you look at it as compared to the other?
So we did 2 years in Mountain Laurel in the Poconos. Mountain Laurel was an excellent starter hotel. A, we were growing out of it. B, it was a little bit stressful. There was the plumber was also the manager. It was a little bit scary. So I actually spent a long time looking for a new hotel. I had to I had this software that I was using for event planners to see what hotels had the right square footage. There's a lot of factors you have to keep in mind. People were like, oh, this hotel. I'm like, there's no indoor pool. And what about this hotel? The square footage, there's no place for camp. There's a lot of factors. So I reached out to this hotel, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but unfortunately there was a fire many years ago from a Passover program. So they were not, Bobby's shaking his head, so they were not going to have a Passover program here again. They just were not, because they had a bad experience, and who could blame them? But because I didn't know that, I was persistent, because what I saw on the grounds, what they did was, instead of telling me no, they just gave me a really high price. So I was like, okay, well, we can't afford that one. So I kept looking and looking, and then I had my top 5 hotels that I wanted. I said, let me try to go back to them now and negotiate. So I reached out to Adam, who was our salesperson, and I said, can we just meet? Can we just meet and talk, and maybe we'll like each other and we'll be able to strike up a deal. And the rest is history, that we were able to strike up a deal, and sometimes you have to try again. So we were able to find this place, and while not everything is always exactly the way we want it, the way that they care and the effort that they put in, the heart and soul here, it's there's nothing like it. So, Baruch Hashem.
I just want to say something.
You have a
funny.
question over there? Yeah,
Not
you.
a question.
Oh, it's not a question.
I just want to say that it took me 44 years to leave my own home for Pesach, because everyone came to us, the kids and the babies. And there is one thing that why we keep coming back here for, and I really mean it, very Hamish. You don't have to be in your diamonds and high shoes every day for breakfast, which a lot of people stress about. And for me and my husband, of course, it's just something that I know all my friends go to programs and they don't have this opportunity. They don't have this incredible experience that you mamish feel at home. I can't think, only in my house, in my kitchen I could go like this, not in a hotel. And for me, it's a lot. It's a lot, because I'm always the one hosting, and coming here, it really taught me a lesson. Hey, you could be a guest, and you could be yourself. And I don't think too many programs
And
offer
people
that,
like Raquel
that
make
trait.
my job easier because I feel like people have my back. I think that's like also something,
100%.
a life lesson that like,
Yeah.
sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're weak. Have the person's back who's usually strong. When they're weak, they're their weakest. Like it's very hard for a strong person to be weak. So when you know someone who's having a downturn, like really have their back, because it's hard to ask for help. Those people harder than anybody. So be on the lookout.
That's a great point, thank you. And we have a question in the back over there.
First of all, just wanted to thank you for the program. It's been here a couple of years already, and it's probably the only program where we feel comfortable that we don't have to. Usually, you have to sacrifice kashrus, and you sort of like you pretend it's good, and you just. But here, we actually feel like it's good, and it's the strictest Chabad minhagim. So if it's good for Chabad, it's going to be good for them and for everybody else. Just curious, how do you handle the inevitable people that start doing the they start doing the math to try to get a bargain? How much is it going to cost you for the hotel? And then they start calculating how much the steaks cost, how much the rooms cost, and then they start doing your math for you and making your cheshbonos.
So I'm actually perfectly fine with that because I think that's one of the entertainments on a hotel program. And also saying what you would do different, like that's what you're here for. You can't put all these Jews in one place and not expect a lot of opinions. And so sometimes when someone really, it's like the fourth time that they're coming to me with their opinions and what they would do, and I have to try to find a way to excuse myself, but I really don't mind. Like, go ahead and try to figure out what you should only know. I mean, sometimes I explain it to people. Like, I'll have the time to explain. They'll say, why don't you just? And I'll be like, well, actually, everything has a reaction. If I would move that to here, then this would not be good, and that, the mashgiach wouldn't like that, and this and that. There's so many reasons why things came out the way they did. But also people call me and they'll try to bargain, and I say, like, we are the best value, first of all. Second of all, I know exactly where I need to be. You don't want me to skimp on food, so don't try to skimp on your bill. Some people, unfortunately, try to say that they have a 5-year-old when they have a when it's really an 8-year-old. Like, it's very sad, but like some things are between Hashem and them, and nothing. I let go of that. But we do try to be affordable, we do. And again, we have to rein ourselves in because it's actually easier to add more programming, keep everyone busy, keep everyone well fed, they're gonna be happier. But there is a sweet spot of trying to deliver a program. And we call it affordable, but like to a lot of people, this is like a lot of money, especially people who are hosting extended family, it's a lot of money. So we appreciate everybody, going out of their comfort zone and knowing that they have to save up for it. We appreciate it. And, we definitely, when people compare us to fancier programs, I'm like, they're 3 times as much as us. So, like, if you want that, then by all means, like, there's a place for it, and you're welcome to, look at all the different programs and choose what's right for your family.
Got a question over here.
Yeah, it's not a question. I think that the standard joke for FFH should be, there's not enough food. I do have 2 daughters with me. One of them has all kinds of chumras, and yet they make sure that at every meal she is accommodated to her, which I think is amazing. And as you say, fancier programs. I went to a fancier program last year, and there was every mishap you can possibly imagine, and paid 3 times the amount. Right. So thank you. It's a perfect program.
I think details are important. I'm a very detail-oriented person, so I think that helps. But I think our staff, again, whatever. Put it this way: any year where there was bumps, we drilled it into everybody that works for us. Like, we spend a lot of time on this, and like everything has to have that same feeling, like in every aspect. So I really believe that all of our staff has that same level. They've either we're always at that level or they've risen to the occasion, and it's important because what if I bring it back to this analogy. If you send your kid to a great school but the bus driver's awful, every single morning you hate the bus driver. That's your take on the whole school is the bus driver. So it's like each aspect has to be good because that could be the person's impression of the whole program. It's like, oh, it was fantastic, but. I don't want any buts. I want, of course there's going to be a but, fine. But just that you should realize that we're trying to answer the buts before you even have them. We're not trying. We're here. We're willing to tweak things to make you comfortable. We can't do everything, but we're here to try to make everything as comfortable as possible.
And I think that's a good distinction between your program and other programs. And by the way, this is a best ad for your program. Like, people are like really enjoying and talking about it and sharing about it. I think that you really care about all the details, and I think so many places they put their intentions, and I see this with podcasts. They're like, oh, the big names and the fancy food, but like, people don't care. Like, they want to have a good time, like, and enjoy, relax, connect with Pesach, connect with Hashem, connect with their family, and you don't get that by having the craziness that we all see on social media and stuff like that. They get it from having the quality that you care about.
One thing I notice also is we attract a very warm crowd. So this person that's not looking to be at the top might just be a warmer person. So the guest experience, that's if we had a bunch of rude people here, the guests wouldn't be having as much of a nice time, right? Because your neighbor is that person that she's talking about, dripping in diamonds at breakfast. So I think it helps also. Like, we're so blessed with the people that have chosen FFH, and that's how we've built such a good core group also, is like, we're so blessed.
That woman over
I have
there.
a question. When you were envisioning, when you first started the program and you had like this idea and concept, did you envision that it would be as big as it is today? And like, are you like appreciative of the like diverse crowd? Did it change your outlook or perspective on how you drove the rest of your life? And are you still in touch with people from like the first years that for whatever reason have no longer come back? Has it like, did you expect it to be as big as it is today?
So I would say we started out sort of as, like I said, we weren't sure if it was going to be a hobby. I think Shlomi was the most vision forward, like, there's something here, there's something here, there's something here. And then once it was actually a struggle for me, I'll tell you a little bit more. It's tricky. If you run a Pesach program as detailed as this one is, you can't really have a full-time job. But I always had a full-time job. But you can't have a full-time job. But it's not a whole year business. Sort of is, but it's not. So it was tricky for me because I couldn't work somewhere full-time and run this program. So until I found that the school hired me knowing already that I ran a Pesach program, that was part of the deal. So then it worked out for me. So the first year that I left where I was working and had to focus only on the Pesach program, that's, I think, when it really developed, because I just all I was doing was working on the Pesach program. But I never envisioned what it built into, because, sometimes you don't even know, what Hashem has in store for you. And the fact that there's all different kinds of Jews here is actually, I think, one of my favorite parts of the program. Because I love meeting different people, but I think it's so important for us all to remember, like, that we're all, and during the year we live in our separate neighborhoods, things are very segregated, and like, that's not real. And like, I don't know, I love it. And if you look at certain family dynamics, you'll see that every kind of Jew is represented in that family. So even within ourselves, everybody's like slightly different. It's so beautiful. And keeping in touch, there's certain people, when Mendel got engaged, we sent the invitation to everybody, because that's how we feel. Like, there's people that we met that, whether they skipped a few years, or first of all, biggest compliment when someone leaves and comes back. But of course, we know we've outpriced some people that were with us originally, but we still care about them deeply. And I think it's just the same. There's certain people, maybe they've only been here once, but we built a relationship, and some people been here a bunch of times, and I never really had a chance to bond with them. So, but, I hope that answered your question.
Over there is a question.
Food here is phenomenal, and there's so much of it. What do you do with the building?
So I just want you to know, behind the scenes, there's hundreds and hundreds of people. So we would never take a plate of half-eaten food and give it to the waiters, but anything from a buffet or anything like that, there's so much. There's a job here called pot washer. There's many pot washers. So there's so many people behind the scenes that, don't worry, their food is not going to waste. So at the end of the program, if there's foods left over, then sometimes we put things out and we offer it to guests, and sometimes we make arrangements for people to pick up. So yes, nothing goes to waste. Don't have no fear.
I just want to say something, sorry. Like I said, it took us 44 years to come here, to leave home for Pesach. But I do want to mention something very important. We didn't know what to do. We're very worried because of the homeless, because of this. And I asked her, I remember once, who is your mashgiach? And she said, Rabbi Matuzov. I grew up with him in Morocco. I was very friendly with his parents. My parents were very close to his parents. So once we heard that, we felt like, wow, like this is our eyes closed. We were like, sold.
So Rabbi Matisov alone is, I mean, how many times I lean on him with questions. I'm not even in the kitchen. And I can't, and he's like, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that. 1 second later, he messages me the answer.
Yeah.
So that's sort of goes back to my point about the talent that we put together and how you can't, one thing won't run well without the other person. So each person of this team is so important. There's not a person on the team that's not important.
The woman in the back over there with the pink. Yeah,
Do
you had,
you bring in an extra cleaning staff or like a lot of people from the city or how does that work?
So we make it very well known to the hotel that about not just refreshing, but the point that it's Pesach. So the hotel does that, but we do remind them how clean we need it to be in our standards. I've never seen so much cleaning staff as the Villa Roma had this year before Pesach. I've just never seen that many people cleaning and scrubbing and the hotel, I was here a few weeks ago before the program and the hotel was spotless as well. So I think they take pride in their property.
woman in the green.
Yes, I only have a comment. The first time I came to FFH, the reason I came, my son said you can't do it anymore, Pesachs, because I would have his family and my daughter's family. It's impossible, Mom. He says, find a program. So I went to the Jewish papers. I called a few others. I had questions. They would say, we'll send you the brochure. They hung up, we'll send you the brochure, and they hung up. But then I found your advertisement, a little article like this. And I called up, and your husband answered, Lchaim. He sat with me on the phone and answered every question I had. I said, that's something different, that's so nice. So I hung up with him and I told my son, I said, I think this is the place to go to. And the next day we made our reservation. That's how I came.
Shout out to Shani. So one thing that we do, and it's very important to us, and I think it's how we built this business, honestly, is that we know, first of all, let's say you were bringing 20 people. Let's say you were hosting in your home. You would know in your head, you'd be going through a checklist of everything that you shopped for and bought and did. And you come here, you're completely out of control because you're not in control of anything, right? So we have to answer your questions. And the people that don't answer questions is a disservice because then the person comes already so nervous because they don't know anything. So by answering the questions, we're actually trying to give you that calmness before you even come, that, yeah, we've thought of that. Don't, you're not the first person, you're not the last person, we've thought of that, we've experienced that, we have the answer.
He took the time.
Oh, he's lovely.
I'm not sure about that.
Right.
About the Yom Tov.
Well, do you see, but do you see? No, but do you see, you're a good grandmother and you were not even worried about yourself, you were worried about your grandchildren, so that just goes to show the type of...
Keep them busy and happy, so that's what mostly it was about ball playing.
Sure. That's very beautiful. We got another question in the back over there from that fellow.
Inspired by this young lady's question, we're in a bubble here, but I'm wondering, I've been by events, let's say like summer camps, where the whole town sort of like waits for us to come because it's a small town with very little economic movement, and then when a big group like this that hires seasonal staff, it has an economic impact on the whole town. I'm just wondering, when you come here, is it you and Villa Roma, or have you heard about the broader impact of people maybe in the town looking forward to opportunities to work during these days, or the economy moving, people going to Walmart and all that?
So definitely not Walmart, but there are different people that reach out to me. Like we had the laser tag guy. Like we didn't have him in the last few years. He calls me every year. Like there's definitely people that want to make sure that we remember that they're a local business. The hotel though is quite busy throughout the year. They have a lot of conferences here. They fill up. The summer, if you come here, it's hopping. So Villa Roma itself is a destination and is quite full. So while I don't know if there's anything like this is out of the norm for any venue, but I think Villa Roma values us as much as we value them. And but the outer because there's so many holiday days, they probably don't feel the impact so much. Like maybe if there was more days that were holiday. But you want to, I guess, leave a good impression anywhere you go. So that's my most important thing that I try to do, is that we should leave a good impression on the hotel and the neighborhood.
Alyson said that she doesn't mind any questions. So throughout the rest of the program, if you have any questions for her, you could just walk up to her and ask her again. But put your hands together again for Alyson.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
The
everyone for
program
coming.
and the lecture.